All right, so it's pretty late, and I already made a video yesterday about Meghan Markle, so I don't want to milk it. Problem is, it's a comedy goldmine. Meghan Markle is you can't ignore her. She did the speech at the One Young World thing in Manchester the other day, and I made a video about that. And it was fun to make, and it was funny to listen to her and all the other people. So I wasn't going to bother listening to her podcast this week. But I started listening to it, and I had to share it with you. We're just going to listen to the first 5 minutes of the podcast. It is genius. But I mean it when I say it. I don't want to just be doing the same thing over and over again. I've got big ideas for this channel. But it's just, I can't stop listening to Meghan. What can I do? This week's episode was about singletons and the stigma around women being single. And you'll see. I thought it was hilarious. I don't know if everyone will agree. Whoever is directing this, whoever's writing the script, because it's certainly not unscripted, they've got a future in sitcoms or in stand-up or in something. It can't be unintentionally this funny.
When I was 14, I planned my wedding. Not my actual wedding. That would have been a bit harder to imagine.
Breaking the fourth wall there, eh, Meghan? Wink, wink, because we all know who I married. That would have been so impossible to imagine. I married a prince, as you all know. That would have been a bit far-fetched, to imagine me marrying a prince like I did, because I married a prince. I'm the Duchess of Sussex. I'm Meghan.
This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school. I remember every little thing about it. I wanted it to be at the Bel Air Hotel, and there was a Swan Lake, and I wanted the cake to be from Hanson's Bakery, and the dress, oh my goodness, the dress was strapless and poofy, and I had seen it in a bridal magazine, and I bought it. I mean, not the dress. I bought the bridal magazine because I took this project seriously. I wanted to get an A, and I did. Maybe I got an A-.
So I started listening to this podcast and I thought, okay, it's another sugary sort of, not my cup of tea, sickly kind of story about her childhood. But it's fine. I'm sure there's an audience for that. And, she's just telling a story about how when she was a little girl and, she had this fantasy of how she wanted to get married and the cake and the dress and where it was going to be and all that kind of thing. And I was thinking it was almost wholesome. Would that it were.
But my grade on the project is actually neither here nor there, because what strikes me now, from my 40-something vantage point, is the fact that this project was even graded at all. The fact that this project even existed. At no point could you say, nope, my dream for the future is to be single.
I've got to say, this made me think a little bit because with society the way it is nowadays, you can't imagine a school ever daring to tell little girls to plan their wedding. But I don't know if there's anything wrong with it or not. What is wrong with teaching young children that there is a traditional way of doing things, per se? Fully expecting and in good faith that the vast majority of people will want to conform to certain rituals that we have and that have been established in our society for hundreds of, not thousands of years. There's a difference between expectations and obligations, similar to the distinction you could make between dislike and intolerance. All that being said, what kind of psychopath kid do you have if their dream is to grow up and be single? Well, it's not a dream. My aspiration is to have no job. What would you like to achieve? Nothing. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Right here.
The message, even at my feminist all-girls school, was as traditional as it gets.
Just remember when she talks about her feminist all-girls school, it was run by Catholic nuns. Radical feminist Catholic nuns, serfs of God, married to Jesus Christ. And I'm a feminist. They were not radical feminists. They were nuns. They were not wearing pussy hats with their tits out in the street, believe you me.
First comes love, then comes marriage. By and large, this is a message that many kids all over the world are still receiving.
Yeah, thank God some of them are being taught, grow up, get married, have kids, so that humanity doesn't fucking die out. You can't help feel sometimes that these people just hate humans. It's not a bad thing that we grow up and want to be monogamous and have kids with somebody that we love. That's not a terrible thing. No one's going to burn you at the stake if you're single. No one cares, but I don't want that for my kids. I want them to be all alone. I would like them to grow up and when they're ready, settle down. That doesn't make me some sort of backward, firebrand Christian conservative.
Like 5-year-old Goldie Gordon, for example. The kid of one of our producer's friends who's got all sorts of ideas about how a wedding should be.
Usually a white gown, sometimes sleeveless. Fancy hairdo, makeup, earrings, sometimes necklace and bracelet. Sometimes it's outside, sometimes it's in like a ballroom, a church, but outside it has to be a pretty place like a meadow, and then one person walks out first, then the other person walks out. If it's a boy and a girl, the boy needs to sing how beautiful the girl looks. And then, but before the lady comes out, a little girl called the flower girl throws flowers.
Laughable. Well, you all know what laughter sounds like.
Yeah, Meghan's creepy fake ASMR laugh aside, that kid was the most adorable thing I've heard all day. A wedding is in a church with the earrings. Funny that Meghan's show is called Archetypes, because these are actually archetypes. This kid is a healthy young girl who has an archetype in her head of what a wedding is. And it's good. It's good for children to have archetypes, because otherwise they become autistic. Children need to develop archetypes. They need the world to be binary. They need things to be explained to them in simple terms. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. And that doesn't mean saying that there is a right way and a wrong way to live. You do need to give them basic instructions of what a wedding is, right? Helps them to navigate the world. As I said a couple of minutes ago, and as I've said in previous videos, it doesn't mean that you're going to have an arranged marriage for a child just because you're explaining to them what a wedding is. There's a difference between expectations, norms, and obligations. There's only a certain amount of nuance that you can include in a normal interaction with an adult human, but when you're explaining things to young children, what a wedding is, you don't have to go into what single people are as well. It's not to deny their existence or say that that's wrong. It's just, this is what most people do, right? So when you see a woman dressed in a white dress and a man in a suit and they're coming out of a wedding and people are throwing flowers at them, you don't scream and spaz out on the floor because you don't know what's going on, right? You need to go, oh yeah, that's a wedding. Archetypes, right?
Oh, I mean, so it's no wonder that in some circles, the single woman, this idea of being unmarried, still carries a stigma. She goes by many names. The old maid, we heard that. You remember that growing up. The singleton, that I remember hearing from Bridget Jones' Diary. And this idea of the spinster, the origin of this one is fascinating.
The history of the term spinster.
This seems excessive for the podcast. God, how much have they spent on the production? It's insane. They've got like a dictionary corner. There's a woman who reads out the definitions of terms at the beginning of every podcast. It's not Meghan. She can't read out the definition. Head over to Abby and Dictionary Corner. Read out the definition of spinster. Spinster is the word of the day.
Begins as a reference to spinners of textiles. And if those women worked, it meant they needed income and therefore must be unmarried because she was living outside of the institution in which she would have been financially provided for by a wage-earning man.
Rebecca Traister is a writer for New York Magazine. She wrote a book not too long ago called All the Single Ladies.
All the Single Ladies? That's not on my to-read list. All the Single Ladies. who don't need no man, written in a white-hot man-hating rage.
Which is when I realized that I had been single all this time, not because men didn't want me, but because I didn't need no man. The end.
Unmarried women and the rise of an independent nation. And so, of course, we had to talk to her to get the lowdown on these words, especially spinster.
I mean, a quick Google search would have done it, Meghan. Why can't you just have, Joe Rogan's got Jamie. Jamie, pull that up. Surely you could have some lackey running around the office for you. Producer. Am I right in thinking that there are actually people who prefer this sort of overproduced sort of radio program style podcast? They prefer this to, say, Joe Rogan or like most of the other popular modern podcasts. I just can't believe that is possible. But maybe it is, I don't know.
But then in the New World, spinster began to refer very precisely to an unmarried woman who was over the age of 23, but under the age of 26. And at 26, women who were not married became known as thornbacks.
Thornbacks.
Which was a reference to a kind of skate, like an ocean skate, that had spiny spikes on its back.
It's a specific insult. Get out of here, you old thornback. Kind of makes sense when you look at the description of a thornback. The thornback ray has a flattened body with broad, wing-like pectoral fins. The body is kite-shaped, with a long, thorny tail. Well, the thorny tail, maybe not so much. The back is covered in numerous thorny spines, as is the underside of older females. Their colours vary from light brown to grey with darker blotches and numerous smaller, darker spots and yellow patches. This is according to Wikipedia. When threatened, they can appear black.
The thornback really reflects the ugliness or unwantedness.
Though I am a solitary creature, I do not resemble a thornback.
Have you guys even heard of that word, thornback?
I had not heard it. No, Meghan, thank you. I'll be using it.
I mean, talk about a label that's bad for women is horrible. You really can't get much nastier than thornback.
Why don't you lay off the thornbacks for a minute, Meghan? I'm sure they don't appreciate being compared to frumpy old women who can't get a date. God, I bet there's some marine biologist geek in some university laboratory right now, screaming at the TV. Actually, thornbacks are quite successful betas. They live in very complex social structures. Shut up, you thornback.
But why all the names in the first place? What was and what is so threatening about women who live outside of marriage?
What I find most threatening about single women is the spines that run down the back. You might, when you're swimming in the sea, you might stand on one of them and you could get a nasty cut.
So marriage as an institution in its traditional form, right, is one that did a really important job, which was organizing power and responsibility and labor along gendered lines. It arranged economic power so that men were earners outside the home. Women both became dependent on them, and also the domestic laborers within that home. It organized sexual power. It organized social power, that is in traditional hetero marriage in which a woman's name is changed to that of her husband.
I love the way these feminists speak, as though men had it great all this time. They're going to wars and going down pits to mine coal and working in steel furnaces and dying when they were 38, Yes, they expected a hot meal when they got home. Is that a lot to ask, woman? You nasty old thornback, you.
And so we have made enormous revisions to the role that marriage plays. We've, in many cases, made it a more equitable institution. We have made it a more expansive institution. But power structures persist because they're really powerful, right? If it was centuries in the building, it's centuries in the dismantling.
Ha! Gotcha! I knew it! You want to dismantle marriage. It's not that you think certain things are not fair about the past and we need to sort of make progress. No, you want to dismantle everything. You want to smash it all down and build back better, don't you? You crazy old thornback. You nasty woman. Not gonna let it happen. Not here. No, sir. Not in my house. I'm king. Better keep it down. My wife might hear me. Anyway, I think that's enough fun for this morning. It's nearly 3 a.m. If this video was a bit stranger than some of the others, then it's very late. But I just felt the need to get this off my chest. Okay? All right.